The NBA Finals are now complete. The confetti fell, the champagne stung people's eyes, and Giannis gave Chick-fil-A a bunch of free advertising.
Can I have, please, a 50-piece Mac Minis?
Game 6 will go down as one of the most historic games in Finals history. Giannis put up numbers that we have never seen in his closeout performance. You would think that right before this potential closeout game of the Finals, that everyone would be focusing on the stars of both teams. Maybe you expected to wake up the morning of Game 6 and see Booker trending on Twitter, or perhaps Chris Middleton and Drew Holiday getting some airtime after they finally showed up for Game 5. But instead we saw this.
Now back to Scott Foster.
This was before the game. An interesting long discussion, Scott Foster.
Why did this NBA referee get so much airtime and mentions before a championship deciding game? The final 90 seconds of Game 2 of the Western Conference Finals between the Phoenix Suns and LA Clippers took 33 minutes in real time. There were as many replays as field goals during that span. All eyes were on the officials for most of the final half hour. A crew that consisted of Curtis Blair, Kane Fitzgerald, and the infamous Scott Foster. Foster's reputation among players and fans is well documented. He was voted the worst official by a group of players back in 2016, by a pretty wide margin. He has butted heads with some of the biggest names in basketball, including Chris Paul and James Harden. The former has lost 11 straight playoff games that Foster has officiated. Paul didn't play in the Suns' Game 2 win over the Clippers in the conference finals, so the losing streak is still alive. Something about Foster's style just rubs players the wrong way. He's been known to be quick with the technicals, and he doesn't allow players to discuss calls as much as other officials in the league. But does that make him a bad official? Do the numbers suggest that he's a bad official? If so, why the heck is he still officiating? Let's take a look. Before we potentially change your opinion of Scott Foster, we want you to take a quick poll. If you don't think Scott Foster is a good official, hit the subscribe button and then the like button. If you do think he is a good official, then hit the like button and then the subscribe button. We'll take a look at the results in the next video. Foster has been officiating in the NBA for 27 years. He is tied for the 5th longest tenured NBA referee, and only Ken Maurer has officiated more playoff games. He's also a huge fan of the movie Braveheart, and he wants to win the US Open Pickleball Championship. He was even featured on the cover of Pickleball magazine last year. I mean, how could players not like this guy? To understand how Scott Foster's officiating compares to the rest of the NBA, it's important to understand his role in the officiating crew. According to the league, there are 3 official roles in each NBA game: the crew chief, the referee, and the umpire. The crew chief is the leader, on and off the court. The referee is the glue through consistency and teamwork. The umpire has strong rule knowledge in the area of responsibilities. Generally, the crew chiefs are the best officials. They are usually the most experienced and seasoned. The crew chief's job is to be the boss, and he can override other officials if they make the wrong call. As the leaders, they also blow their whistle more than the average, so instead of just looking at Foster's individual performance, which is obviously going to include an above average number of calls, it makes sense to also compare the performance of Scott Foster-led crews to the performance of the average NBA referee crew. As far as his individual performance, we can see that over the course of this last season, Scott Foster blew the whistle more than all but one official. It's not hard to see why. Everyone knows who he is. He's heavily involved in games he officiates, as he calls over 40% of the fouls. If you remove all non-crew chiefs from this list, he sits at the very top. Here's a look at Foster's performance relative to the average for every type of call. Foster is above average in every foul call category except for defensive 3 seconds. Thanks to Owen Phillips over at F5 for this referee report card. Go check him out. He has a lot of awesome posts on Instagram. There'll be a link in the description. Foster likes to control the game with a quick whistle. And when we think about our earlier research, it's pretty easy to see why. He probably likes to see himself as Mel Gibson, leading the troops into battle. He has to take it upon himself to make sure nothing gets by him. But much like Mel Gibson and his Scottish accent, sometimes he gets a little carried away.
But they'll never take
So, as we said before, it might be unfair to look just at his individual performance, since he does lead a crew of 2 other officials. If the crew overall performs as well or better than average, it doesn't really matter how Foster ranks individually. To look at the overall crew performance, we'll use the last 2-minute report cards from the NBA. Since 2015, the NBA has released a report card of calls made or missed for every game that was within 5 points in the last 2 minutes. One important note is that the last 2-minute report carries the same burden of proof as in-game replay reviews. In other words, they need to have clear, concise evidence to overturn a call or say that it was wrong. This means the number of calls missed will always be understated, as it favors whatever the original call was on the floor. But that being said, we are still comparing apples to apples, as every officiating crew benefits from the same rules here. The NBA has released 2,722 last 2-minute reports, 155 of which include games Scott Foster officiated. In each of these reports, the NBA has 4 categories for every play: correct no call, incorrect no call, and incorrect call. Across all games, both regular season and playoffs, Foster-led crews are 14% more likely to make a correct call, 3% less likely to miss a call, and 40% more likely to make the wrong call entirely. You can explain this away. Foster is one of the most senior officials in the league, so he officiates a lot on the biggest stage. Just like players, referees are bound to be statistically worse in big games. So how about we look at just playoff games? Well, that's even worse. Foster's crews are 32% more likely to make a correct call, which basically just means they call a lot more fouls, since like we already talked about, they have to have clear evidence to overturn these calls in the report. They're 15% less likely to miss a call. Just by nature of blowing the whistle more often, they're less likely to miss something. And now the worst part, they are almost twice as likely to make the completely wrong call. Scott Foster is one of 7 officials who make a league-high salary of $550K a year, so the expectations should be as high as anybody. The NBA conducts their own reviews of officials by grading every performance, and they obviously place Foster among the elite, but according to their last 2-minute reports, he is well below average when it counts the most. Maybe he's just that much better throughout the rest of the game that isn't the last 2 minutes. Yeah, maybe he just sucks. How are they able to create 72 pages of pickleball content every other month? Guess we'll find out.